All right, guys, welcome back to Shadow Revolution Online 2024. We are here now with Christian Whitehead and with our hosts, Chris and Kevin. Guys, I'm going to take this over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
So, yeah, welcome, Kristen. Thank you for taking the time to come and do a Q&A with us. So, if you all have a question, please raise your hand, or if you have a tech question, put it in the text chat, and we will pin it. So, let's go right to it. Chris, would you like to? Well, I guess
Me
Kristen, would you
first
like
one.
to introduce? Well, yeah. Well, Kristen, would you like to introduce yourself first for anybody who doesn't know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess in the Sonic scene, I'm I have a long time background as a scener. Back kind of in the 2000s, I made Sonic fan games, and that was kind of always like a hobby of mine. And then later on in the 2010s, as a professional game developer, I actually ended up working on the Sonic series. And Sonic Mania is obviously kind of the most notable title that I've worked on so far. But I also did a several re-releases on mobile, and also Xbox Live Arcade for Sonic CD. And those games also recently came out in Sonic Origins. And yeah, also I'm a creative director and lead engine architect at a company called Evening Star, and we just released an original game early this year called Penny's Big Breakaway, which is like a 3D platformer as well. So yeah, these days I'm pretty much a professional programmer and game developer, and I also play music, and yeah, I'm a bit of a all-round tinkerer.
Alrighty. Well, Chris, would you like to select the first person to come up to ask a question?
Yep. Well, let's start off with TDW.
Oh,
Hello.
hello. It's an honor to say hi. I do have a question to ask. For the Taxman. How do you feel about people modding Sonic Mania to make their own the fan takes of the game?
I actually find it incredibly flattering because it's sort of, in a way, it's kind of gone full circle because that's basically what I did when I was a teenager. I not so much modding ROMs and stuff, but definitely, kind of like trying to work out how the, original games ticked. And so I guess to see a younger generation of people also learning how to make games through examining their games that they really like, yeah, it's just incredibly flattering. Um, that's just, yeah, me personally. Obviously, I don't know what companies think about the legality of it, but let's. And my attitude is like, as long as people aren't trying to like swindle people out of money, it's all good.
All right, that's
Understandable.
Yeah. If I may ask one before I call up the next audience member, what was it like going from a 2D game like Sonic Mania to a 3D game like Penny Big Breakaway in terms of development?
It was, I would say, like the way as an engine programmer, it's kind of like an exponential jump in terms of the level of tooling and experience you need to pull off a 3D game compared to a 2D game. But it was real, like I really wanted to ship a 3D game just because, the last sort of decade was dedicated to pixel art, and I didn't want to get typecast as like only being able to do pixel art, even though, I really appreciate that genre or medium rather. But for me, it was like the bucket list as a game developer to, move into 3D and learn that kind of process. And having grown up during that transition from 16-bit to 32-bit or 64-bit consoles, like that was a really exciting time to be a gamer. And so it was almost kind of like living through that from the perspective of a developer, being basically like, well, how do we translate kind of our workflow, constructing levels, which in 2D is pretty easy to understand with like stuff like tile sets and sprites, but then in 3D, obviously polygons are fairly straightforward to understand what they do, but in terms of working out the most efficient method to actually lay out all that stuff in a world, there's quite a lot of planning and technology that goes into that, particularly if you want to actually make a fair amount of level content in a efficient time frame. So it was, I think when we basically started our company, even started with the goal of being able to do 3D. And so it took us a couple of years just kind of building up to that point where we could develop a 3D game. And then, I'm very proud that we managed to ship Penny. And I think from here, it's sort of like now I can refine and make even better games going forward.
All right. Well, thank you for answering my question. I'll call up Hannah next.
All right.
Hey, Hannah.
Hello.
Hi, Hannah.
So my question is, have you ever worked on zones before? If so, what was your favorite zone to work on?
This one's easy because my favorite zone was Studiopolis. And that was one of the first zones that we, it was the first zone that we used to pitch Sonic Mania to Sonic Team. And it was just like, when we were thinking about what levels Sonic should visit for Sonic Mania, that one kind of immediately jumped into my mind about what would Sonic be like in a television studio. And it just came together really quickly in terms of all the ideas for the different gimmicks and things that would happen in that stage. So that's my favorite zone.
Nice. I like that one too. Mostly because of all the videotape things where they kind of clap and the director says action.
Yeah. I
You know which one
also
I'm talking about?
I studied film and television before I worked in game development. So it was kind of an overlap of interest for me where I had a lot of things I loved about like film and television production, and then sort of combining that with the Sonic Zone. I think that's probably why it was so easy to come up with all those ideas.
Nice.
Thank you for your question, Hannah.
No problem.
Alrighty.
All right.
Why don't you select the next person?
And before we do that, I do have a question. What inspired you to come up with Sonic Mania?
I think the answer to this is probably nothing, like it's nothing crazy, but there's like several things that kind of came together. Like I kind of describe Sonic Mania as somewhat lightning in a bottle in how it happened, just because like with my previous work with Sega of America, there was always kind of this like, there was always someone on the team that was like, oh, we should make an original 2D Sonic game together. But the opportunity just never seemed to come up, like either timing with the games that they were putting out. And it was basically like the end of 2015, the social media manager, Aaron, basically came to me and he was like, we're looking to do something for Sonic's anniversary. And obviously Sonic Team had Sonic Forces, which at the time I knew nothing about, but they're like, can we do something a bit different? And there wasn't a lot of time to think about the idea. And so initially, I was thinking like, oh, we'd only get to make a real small bite-sized game, because originally I was thinking it would have to come out in like on Sonic's birthday in 2016, which didn't leave us a lot of time. And so that's initially where we were like, okay, let's make a game with maybe like 4 new zones, and maybe we could package it with the remastered Sonic games that I previously worked on. But then we made, we got to go ahead to make a test zone, which ended up being a portion of Studiopolis. And then we pitched that to Sonic Team. And then, basically, Izuka-san, who was, essentially the head of Sonic Team, saw that and then basically wrote on the whiteboard Sonic Mania. And basically after seeing, like, because the prototype was actually called Sonic Discovery, and basically after seeing the game and talking about what we had on the table in terms of time and resources, we pretty quickly came collectively in that room to a decision that, like, okay, let's have the new zones, but then also remix some of the classic zones and put that together as a new game package as Sonic Mania. And the term Mania, I guess, in terms of its like Japanese connotation, is sort of the equivalent of like, like core fan. So the idea of a Sonic Mania, someone who has Sonic Mania is someone who has like, that kind of extreme passion and love for the brand. And so I guess that was sort of like the idea that we as developers were sort of putting our, passion and love into that project. And so, really from that point on, we were just like, how do we make the, both the new zones and the remix zones as exciting as possible with the time that we had? And we just sort of just went all out for it and just did as much as we could. And yeah, the rest is history.
All right. All right. Now for the next person, let's bring up Chris 25050. There you go. Let's bring him up.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Christian. I've been loving Mania so far, and yeah, I tried out the demo for Breakaway, and that was pretty fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
So my question is kind of a simple one. What got you into the Sonic franchise?
That, I think the first game I ever played from the Sonic series was Sonic 2. And like, it's funny because growing up, I was not really a video game person initially. And it was actually my sister who kind of like begged our parents to, get a Mega Drive at the time. And we finally got one, and it came with The Lion King instead of Sonic. And my first kind of experience as a kid, like being aware of Sonic, was just seeing him on a poster in, I think like a toy store or a video store. And I just remember thinking the character, I was like, that was a really cool cat. I didn't realize he was a hedgehog at the time, but I was just like, oh, this blue cat looks awesome. I want to play as that. Well, I didn't know it was a video game, but I'm just like, I want to watch that cartoon or something. And so my friend had a copy of Sonic 2, and I just made the connection where it's like, oh, I've seen this character. This is what it is. I'm like, oh, we have to play this game. And I played Sonic 2 and then basically instantly fell in love with it. It was just so much fun. Like, even getting hit by an enemy and seeing the rings fly out, like, I didn't quite understand what was going on at the time, but it just seemed really cool and fun. And so, from there, I ended up playing like Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. And those two games like really just felt epic to me at the time. And yeah, that just made me a Sonic fan from then on.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you got your cat later on, as we know with Blaze, but still. Anyway, that was all, and hopefully you have a good day.
Yeah, thanks.
Alrighty, so thank you for that question, Chris. Let me go a little bit towards the middle here and call up CamCam to ask their next question.
All right.
Hi.
Cam.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Hi. Hello, Taxman. My question for you is that out of every mod that you worked on, whether in the Sonic series or outside the Sonic series, what was your hardest project to work on, like based on levels?
So, I mean, I didn't release any mods per se, but I did kind of, if we're talking about sort of when I was doing fan games before my professional career,
Yeah.
probably the most challenging and rewarding thing was getting Retro Sonic to run on the Sega Dreamcast, which, at the time, like the development, homebrew development on retro consoles these days is like really impressive in that, like, you can basically hook up a Dreamcast to a computer and set up a debugger, and it more or less feels like developing professionally. But at the time, the way I was getting it to work was basically compile the binary and burn it to a CD, and then put the CD in the Dreamcast, and then hopefully it works. And just trying to debug that and get that to work. I went through a lot of burnt CDs, and it was, but at the same time, I was just so excited because it was like the first console I ever got code to run on. And so that was just incredibly rewarding, getting a couple of levels of Retro Sonic running on Dreamcast.
Wow. I bet that was nerve-wracking, huh?
When I was down to my last like 2 CDs, it was. I was like, I've got to make them count.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for answering my question.
No worries.
Have a good time.
All right. So thank you for that question, Cam. So, Chris, I'll let you take the next person.
All right. Let's see. I will choose from the third row as well. Let's bring up Minu. Sorry if I butchered your name wrong. Minu.
Can you
There
hear
we go.
me?
Yes,
you
we
hear me?
can. Yes, we can.
I got 2 questions for you.
Only one at a time.
Okay, one question. Where did you get all those way past cool ideas for creating those video games? Do you get it
I
from your...
think, let's see. I think part of it is just like drawing on other activities I do, or like for Sonic Mania in particular, I was just trying to. I think there's like a certain methodology to it where obviously understanding the types of gimmicks that are typically placed in Sonic stages, in regards to like how they augment Sonic's like speed or momentum. Definitely like things that kind of like change the direction or modulate the speed, like that kind of creates a sense of excitement. And so I guess like in the case of Studiopolis, a good example would be we had like the film reel that you would run on it, and it would basically expand outwards. And I was sort of, the way we came up with that gimmick was basically, in terms of gimmicks that had precedence in Sonic, there was like the wheels in Scrap Brain or Carnival Night, where like Sonic basically rotates around them. And then, so I was like, instead of having that fixed in place and Sonic going around it, what if we kind of reverse the relationship and have Sonic kind of lock into place and then have it start unfurling? And yeah, that's basically kind of the way I would go about it with Sonic stuff, is just like, think of the kind of motion mechanic you want, and then what is a real life object that kind of plays off that well, and then is there something surprising you can do with the animation that to also sell the enjoyment of the effect, even down to like really bread and butter things like platforms. Like in Studiopolis, you know, we had the moving platforms on a conveyor, but then we turned the conveyor into like a film strip, and then that was like projecting a kind of vaudevillian animation of Dr. Eggman kind of dancing on the screen. So yeah, that I guess like if we were coming up with a method, that's how I'd boil it down. But a lot of the time it's just like, our designer Brad likes to joke that, you know, if an idea sounds stupid, then it's probably a lot of fun. And so we just kind of, yeah, just try to have a lot of fun with the things that we think up with, we come up with, because then that tends to kind of weave itself into the actual end product.
Okay, that's good. And my second question is?
I'm sorry, we only have time for one question.
Okay. Thank you for answering my question. Peace
All right,
out.
thank you for your question. All right, so let's go way to the bottom and call up KyoSaya.
Come on up.
Hello there.
Hello, welcome. What's your question?
This is for Christian, I guess, more than anything else. I've just been a big fan of 3 and K for ever, honestly. And this super early concept is something that's always been perplexing to me. When I played Mania and we got to the Hidden Palace Zone, and we saw the like. Let me rephrase the question. What is the connection between the regular Chaos Emeralds and the Super Emeralds? Because we see them broken in the game, but the regular Chaos Emeralds are still there. I'm just curious as to how that works.
Oh yeah. So I guess like if we, now that the game's out and it's kind of like set in stone, basically my kind of explanation for that is, because the hypersonic and stuff, at least at this point, is considered a one-time special event in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And
Okay.
I guess the story like for that is that, you know, the emeralds themselves kind of like powered up when they returned to the you know, the Master Emerald, because obviously with Sonic Adventure, like they kind of established the law that the, you know, they're kind of like the servers of the Master Emerald. And so I guess up until this point, maybe they'd been away from the Master Emerald for a long time. And so maybe let's imagine that Sonic 3 and Knuckles is where they kind of get reunited after a period of time. And so you could almost argue that the Super Emeralds are kind of like what they should be. And from that point on, it's kind of like the emeralds in the series are basically always that from that point on. Now, the more pragmatic explanation is that, and this was given at San Diego Comic-Con panel when we were presenting Mania, was, you know, someone asked the panel, you know, why isn't there hypersonic anymore? And basically, like, they don't want to do a power creep thing where it's like, you know, what happens after supersonic, then hypersonic? What happens after hypersonic? Do we have to do super duper ultrasonic? Like, they just want to kind of keep it easy to understand that it's like you have Sonic and then Sonic powered up by the emeralds. So yeah, with that kind of explained, it's like, I guess the stone, they're kind of like relics of that event in Sonic 3 and Knuckles in Mania, where it's like they're like stones, like replicas of what, you know, when the emeralds took their place there and the importance of it in that storyline. and then yeah, they're not, obviously they're not emeralds anymore. They're just like the stone relics, kind of just taking the place of the emerald while they're not there, because the emeralds travel pretty much everywhere with every story.
Okay, then. Well, that answers that question. That my theory is confirmed. Then.
I tried, man. I like the Sonic lore is very deep, and I'm definitely not the the official authority on it, but that's just my understanding from our development of Sonic Mania.
I think Radar Geek. Yeah, I think Radar Geek and Howard down there in the audio. But yeah, Chris, would you like to select the next person?
Yeah. Let's get Raider up here.
Actually, you'd be surprised. I was actually unable to multitask, and I didn't even realize that a big question had come up until the Super Emeralds were brought up, and I was just like, "Wait, what?" So that was fantastic. Anywho, hello, Christian. Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Hey.
Hey, just wanted to say, enjoyed Penny's Big Breakaway. I very much enjoy playing through Vanilla Town and Pangoville, by the way. Really like just I just like the music, honestly. T-Lopes did a great on that, and it's just a vibe playing through those levels.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make, and the music in particular is something that I'm really personally proud of, because T and I kind of worked really closely on that stuff, and we just kind of tried to come up with something really kind of out there. So yeah, to hear someone enjoy it, that's always really rewarding.
I just like listening to the OST whenever I'm like working on other stuff. So, it's really appreciative.
Awesome, thanks.
But yeah, my question now, apologies that we have to do a lore question back to back, but I was hoping I could ask you in regards to the world building put into Sonic Mania. Yeah. So I I've had to discuss this with so many other Sonic fans, but so I know the new levels in relation to Sonic Mania, as far as things go, is that um as most as some fans would know, Studiopolis and Mirage Saloon are supposedly set on West Side Island, since Studiopolis has pipe connections to Chemical Plant, and Mirage Saloon is a blaster shot away from Oil Ocean. And then Titanic Monarch is on Little Planet, with it being built as a robot, but it's a base. However, as far as many sources have talked about it, and pages written and whatnot, Press Garden doesn't seem to have much of a location confirmation compared to the other levels. And I know people have like flip-flopped between like South Island, West Side Island, and I was just wondering if you possibly know anything that could be said about Press Garden on where it is on Sonic's World.
So it is technically, canonically a mystery, yet to be confirmed. Because it was not written down in the GDD, so therefore I cannot make that judgment until something actually happens in a future game or something. So at this stage, you just have to assume that it is a new place that you may one day kind of learn more about, but it's not on any pre-existing island, at least to my knowledge, like pre-documented island.
Yeah, no, I understand that. To be honest, I wasn't expecting. I mean, I was hoping for something, but yeah, that was to be expected. I guess I was just expecting other. Sorry, my words are not coming out. Yeah, you know what? That was just to be expected. I guess I was just assuming off of the fact that all the other levels seem to have connections to the islands. I thought Press Garden would have had one too, but either way, Thank you so much for answering nonetheless.
Yeah, no worries. It's definitely the Phantom Ruby, because yeah, if you like, it definitely jumbled up the location of very like. I think part of it is it literally allowed us to do anything with the order of stuff, because initially when we were planning. Uh, once we had the premise for Sonic Mania, where it's like the new zones and the old zones, I actually did try and kind of put a lot of effort into like trying to order these things, and like, does it need to fit chronologically? Does it need to fit like location wise? And then it ended up being sort of like the flow of the gameplay was the most important thing. And then once we were kind of told that we needed to include an element from Sonic Forces, which was the Phantom Ruby, then that kind of pretty much, like, full disclosure, I think probably like our team was like Press Garden Zone itself is like such an interesting thing, just in terms of that zone kind of very organically came together from all of us on the team, where initially we were kind of thinking like we wanted to make a level based on a printing press, but then we were also told that they wanted Sonic Mania needed a snow level. And so that's how we kind of had to end up combining those two concepts together. But then we were also, some of the other members on our team were inspired by the Meiji Restoration era from Japan. And so, yeah, there was just a lot of unique elements that kind of went into that zone. And then by the time we finished it, I guess any kind of notion of what island it would have fit on in terms of like South Island or West Side Island or Angel Island, I think by that stage we just like didn't really think, didn't think it would fit naturally on any of them. And then because the story didn't have like wasn't really centered around a new island, we weren't going to like sort of come up with one just off the top of our hat and just like have it as a because no one would even really know in Sonic Mania that they're playing through the storylines. So yeah, that's my kind of like pragmatic explanation for why it is the way it is. And then yeah, hopefully in the future, maybe the place where it is located, we can learn more about it.
Honestly, just a little bit more introspective on how that, how the development of it, um, uh, I guess I'm just blown away by the information of this. Yeah, that makes total sense. Um, I hope we can find. I'm hoping that the Sega and Sonic Team will be able to find a spot for Press Garden. It's a very interesting place with it being in the first act tied to Eggman, and then uh, you know, Sonic and friends freeing it from uh just the hold of the Eggman Empire, and it goes back to being like this beautiful nature scene. And yeah, no, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's more than what I could have asked for.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a
All
good
right.
day.
All right.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
Radar.
Yep. Thank you for that question, Radar. So we have a tech question from SuperSonic 2073. It says, how did you get to Sega, and where did you get the idea to name Sonic Mania?
So the first, like, how did I get to Sega?
Yeah.
That was, well, that kind of goes all the way back to 2009 when, so obviously with Sonic Mania, we didn't just contact them out of the blue. It took several games to kind of build up my reputation to the point where something like that could happen. And so the first game I worked with Sega on was the re-release of Sonic CD on mobile, which came out in 2011. And basically, to get that job, I basically, let's see, this is going back quite a while, so I'll try to remember the details. But basically, at the time, I think I downloaded a copy of Sonic 1 on the phone, which when they first released it on iPhone, it was like an emulator. And I remember thinking, because I was like really motivated to kind of move into mobile gaming at the time because it was, new and exciting, and it seemed like it opened the door for small independent developers to do projects. And originally, I was thinking I was going to make an original IP on as a mobile game, but then I saw they were starting to release the old Genesis games on the phone, and I thought, well, first of all, I looked up who developed it, and it was like a contractor, an emulator programmer who was like in Texas or something. And I'm like, well, if Sega contracted one person to make an emulator, I'm like, well, maybe they could contract an Australian developer to do another game. And so I was thinking, like, what Sonic game could they not do? Because obviously they had an emulator for Genesis, and I was thinking, well, Sonic CD is the perfect example for a phone, because not only is it something like the Mega CD, which they didn't have an emulator for, but we could also take advantage of the video playback to play the anime cutscenes that Sonic CD has, and the CD quality music. And then also, like, I felt, like the retro engine that I developed was able to run at 60 frames a second on the iPhone and Android at the time. And so I was like, well, that's better performance than the emulator. So with all that kind of out of the way, I made a pitch video and contacted one of the representatives at Sega, and they didn't really kind of give me the time of day at the time, just because, they probably get a lot of unsolicited pitches and stuff. And I was just I happened to be fortunate in the very week that I, was trying to reach out to them. They put a social media post asking, like, what games should we release on iPhone? And so I, put my pitch video up on YouTube, and it got like a whole lot of attention from the mobile gaming outlets at the time. And it pretty much like turned the eye of Sauron right onto me. And so I didn't know if I was going to be sued or like given a CMD or something. But thankfully, they, the very kind of evening of putting that video up, they like sent an email and like, hey, would you like to talk with one of our producers? And it took a lot of time to kind of, for them to verify that like I legitimately developed all this stuff, and then it was my own engine and everything. And once I kind of went through all the legal processes and stuff, then yeah, I got the contract to do Sonic CD, and then worked hard to put that out. And then that was a success. And then they basically came back and asked if I could update Sonic 1 and 2. And then this other developer, Simon Tomley, who the community probably also knows as Stealth, he's also a long-time scener, and he kind of initially was kind of like, hey, man, I wanted to do that. Like, and I was like, well, why don't you just work with me on the next one? And so, yeah, he teamed up with me on Sonic 1 and 2. And then in the meantime of developing those games, I also met a bunch of other developers that I really got on well with, and they were Pagoda West games. And then basically by the time we got to Sonic Mania, there was this group of people that I was pretty tight with. And then when the opportunity came up to do an anniversary game for Sonic's 25th anniversary, we were just like, okay, let's do it. Let's try and make this classic Sonic game happen. And yeah, that's the story.
Alrighty, so thank you for that question there. So, Chris, I'll let you pick the next person.
All right. Let's see. Let's bring up Ava.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Ava.
Hey, so my question is that, like, when it comes to development, a lot of things change over the whole cycle. Anything notable that was cut from Mania during development? Because I see a lot of things on the cutting room floor, and I'm curious if you have any more insight.
Well, I think every game has a lot of material that doesn't make it either through the process of iteration or scheduling constraints. And I think at least on like every year, I kind of drop a tidbit on Mania's anniversary about things that changed during development.
Yeah, I think you
So
should.
yeah, I feel like we've documented most of them. Like there's definitely there's like there's a lot of music tracks that T did that were awesome demos, but like they maybe didn't quite fit the creative brief. In fact, recently I think he put up a video for like Pulp Solstice, which was the original name for Press Garden, and the vibe of the music is like very different. And the reason why that didn't make it in was basically we were like, oh, we were thinking something more mysterious and moody because we had Heavy Shinobi in the level. And he kind of originally had this much more like cheerful kind of like almost to me it feels like a kid's shonen anime kind of theme song or something. And it was definitely kind of a cool bop, but I'm like, it's not the true vibe of the level. So that kind of went into the vault. And I guess a more famous example is the one of the music tracks in Sonic Superstars, the Lagoon Act 2, the water level. That music track was actually meant to be for Hidden Palace Zone in Sonic Mania. And the Hidden Palace Zone was originally meant to be a brand new one. Because like every hardboard heavy level was meant to be kind of a new level. But then basically when we were scoping out the development timeline, we're just like, oh, this level is not going to fit in because at least if we have to make, all the new art and all the kind of full level gimmicks and everything. So we kind of had to modify that and just go with Sonic 3 and Knuckles, that hidden palace. And so it ended up just sort of being the setting of the boss arena for Heavy Rider. But the original plan was to have a more kind of extensive, a different new hidden palace because, don't forget, I also did a take on the Sonic 2's Hidden Palace. And so it was like, well, if we've already got Sonic 2 Hidden Palace and then Sonic 3K Hidden Palace, this is just kind of like, we never really did any kind of major concepting for this, but just off the top of my head, I think we were going to imagine what sort of the caves around Never Lake would be like. Because that sort of, there's the big lakefront and then the chain leading up to Little Planet. And so the original concept for Heavy Rider was that after going through this Hidden Palace section, you would ride up the chain, kind of battling Heavy Rider as you get up to the planet, Little Planet. So yeah, that's probably all I can think off the top of my head, because there was like so many other like little random things that changed, like the special stage, which I made a post this year where the UFO was originally meant to get angry at you when you stole its emerald, and then it would like chase after you. And that was like, initially that seemed really fun, but then we're like, oh, if you have to do that, like after, like we made like an initial test layout of the special stage, and like, this is actually a really challenging just to get the emerald. So we're like, probably don't need a second section to draw it out even more.
Yeah.
So that's probably why, a lot of the, it's funny because growing up, like I understand a lot of the mysticism and excitement kind of learning about stuff about, particularly like Sonic 2 had so much about it that changed, and learning all those kind of tidbits and uncovering it through like magazine articles and prototypes that got dumped and stuff, like that was really exciting growing up. And like my perspective now as a developer, like the developers are like so focused on just shipping the game that like all this content, like you just forget like that it gets tossed aside and it's like sitting on a hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, I do testing for this MMO, and there's just all these like different weapons and guns sitting around, and it's like, oh, it's so cool. But when we actually play with them on like the test environment, it's like these aren't as cool now that I actually get to actually see them. I will thank
Yeah,
you for
so I feel like most of the changes that game developers make are usually for the best.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for answering my question. I don't want to take up too much time.
Alrighty, so thank you for that question there, Ava. So let me go to the top here, and I will call Pegasus J. Crawford.
Come on up.
Hey, I am so glad to be here. It's an honor.
Greetings.
All right, first I just want to say your work is absolutely amazing, the Taxman, from Mania and your current games, and just honestly, just the entire story that you've kind of told about how you've come from not even a fan of games to one of the most renowned Sonic Mania or Sonic gaming creators, creating Mania is just it's a pretty amazing story, and it honestly gives me a lot of hope of like seeing our current generation and any of the future ones having the possibility to do the same thing. And I'm really glad to see that people are honestly still committed to like Sonic and stuff in the way that they're doing it, and just how they continue to mod stuff and say, because like it's fine as long as they're not making money or whatever, uh, and stuff like that. It's just pretty amazing overall. Mania is amazing. It's literally a beautiful work of art. It's has so many nice. It's just a good homage overall. And about Press Garden before, it is probably one of my favorite levels. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad they included it in it, and the music is honestly just spectacular. I do have a question about another lore question, unfortunately, but and mine's about the Emerald. But so there's the Hidden Palace zone, and then you have Sky Sanctuary zone. I know in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you get to go to Hidden Palace and you see the Master Emeralds there, or the Super Emeralds. Is there two different emeralds, or like I'm kind of confused on the difference between. So we know there's a Master Emerald in the Mystic Ruins from like Sonic Adventure, which is part of Angel Island, but there's also apparently one in Sky Sanctuary, because in one of the games, Sonic 2 or Sonic 3, you fight Mecha Sonic and he goes super by standing on the Emerald in the Sky Sanctuary zone. I looked at the like some of the like actual layout of the map, and I don't even see the Emerald Altar or anything there for it. So I'm not sure how it. Are there two? Are there one? Are there multiple like places that the Echidnas like move the Master Emerald to? Is there a main base? I don't know if you know any of that, but I'm just kind of confused on like
So,
what is the. Yeah, go ahead.
Mike, I'm pretty sure I've read that there are like multiple like resting places that it can be.
Right.
And just thinking about the actual flow of events in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because obviously Sonic's story, it's the Emerald's obviously safe in Hidden Palace, but then it gets stolen. And the Death Egg obviously crashes through, on the top of the volcano, and it's looming down. And so that it's almost like the Hidden Palace is violated by Eggman at that point. And then Sonic defeats Eggman, and then the Emerald kind of falls out from the sky. And SuperSonic obviously saves the Emerald and delivers it back to Knuckles. But then if you play Knuckles' story, which starts after Sonic's story in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, presumably it's, Mecha Sonic and Egg Robo basically work together. And, Egg Robo distracts Knuckles with the bomb at the start of Sonic and Knuckles.
Right.
And sort of leads him on a wild goose chase, I guess. And then we kind of don't know where the Master Emerald was resting. Maybe maybe it went back to Hidden Palace, or maybe Knuckles put it on an altar in Sky Sanctuary, just because. I mean, arguably that's kind of even more visible to someone who'd want to steal it.
Yeah.
But maybe he wants
Right.
to put it there, just as temporarily. And
It
then
didn't work in Hidden Palace, so let's move it here.
yeah, and then obviously Mecha Sonic discovers the emerald and then uses it to power up, and basically tries to defeat Knuckles, but fails and gets destroyed. And then at that point, the emerald falls off again with Knuckles, and then Sonic comes back and then gives them a ride back. And from there, it's sort of, I guess, maybe at that point, maybe Knuckles decides that it's like, well, people know about it now. It's not like an unknown commodity.
Right.
So I think the most important thing for Knuckles is just like, he has to he's its guardian. So
Right.
he can't, and maybe it's like with Sonic, the events before, it's like a bit of a security through obscurity, where no one knows about the law, but now it's all, the cat's out of the bag, everyone knows about it. And so the focus kind of for him changes from being this reclusive echidna that's the last of his kind, to being, he has to live out in the world, and he has to actively defend his turf from Eggman and anyone else who may invade. So I guess since he's kind of more actively defending it, maybe to me that seems the reason why he could put it on the original, like the altar that's in kind of Sonic Adventure. Like, to me, that is its original altar. But then when Chaos was summoned and destroyed their civilization, like, all that remains is just that kind of pillar. And I guess it's an easy resting place for it now, because Knuckles can just watch it while he kind of relaxes in the field.
Actually, that puts it into very good perspective, and it makes sense, and it's working so far. So I guess just keep it there and just keep actively defending it. That actually makes a lot of sense. So cool. The only thing I want to add is I think that Mania overall was really good, and the concept of the egg robos were absolutely genius. I love their artwork, especially in Titanic Monarch when you're fighting them. Before the final boss, that was the artwork. I just cannot I can't express just how beautiful it is. The murals and stuff like that were just fantastic. And also the concept of the Phantom Ruby as a plot device was genius to connect it to Mania. I mean, to Forces. Anyway, that's all I had. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Alrighty. Hey, Jane, I think that should be the last question, so we can get time to prepare for the next one. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Kristen, was there anything you'd like to say before we close out this Q&A?
Well, just thanks everyone for taking the time to listen to me ramble in the morning. Obviously, if you haven't played Penny's Big Breakaway and you want to play it, there's a demo out, so give it a try, and if you like it, buy it. That'd be great. But you don't feel pressured. Like, I'm kind of always feel awkward spruiking products. Like, it won't hurt my feelings if you don't like it. But otherwise, I hope to, present another game project when it's ready. And I just want to keep doing what I do, and I'll endeavor to do so. So yeah, I really appreciate the support and everyone's interest in what I've made so far.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much, Christian, for coming, and thank you everybody here for coming. Please give Christian a round of applause, and thank you, Chris, for co-hosting. And we'll be
No
starting.
problem.
We'll be starting Sunday's Q&A in just a few moments.
Awesome. Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. See you later.